And that's actually where the origin of a lot of our version of the technology comes from. So to just take a little detour is like the technology has been around for a number of years, but in its original form, they used to have things called I think they're pantographs and things like this that they could use to move around, and they would manipulate like architects and stuff would use them for drawings to be able to duplicate. And then that evolved into handling of basically fissile and nuclear material and stuff like this when you had to be away. And they had these beautiful systems and machines that used to do it almost all mechanically, like no, it was all
using
through cables
levers,
and
essentially.
levers and cables and things like this. And it was actually in the mid 90s where a guy who's actually very pertinent right now, because he just was unseated from his place in the Senate. It was Thomas Massey. He was one of the senators from Kentucky. And he was just basically unseated like in an election 2 days ago or something, but he was at MIT, and he actually invented the version of our technology, which was kind of the desktop haptic device, which was, hey, let me see if I can create a virtual world. And then instead of it being real forces that I'm interacting with, like when handling, nuclear material or stuff, it was actually interacting with a digital version with a force physics engine and stuff like that. And so he invented this with a professor, his name is Ken Salisbury, and this was at MIT. And they created a company called Sensible Technologies. And that company ended up building this great device. And when I say display, I mean like the same way we're looking at a computer monitor that's displaying to our eyes. This displays touch to your hands, like these forces. And so Ken and Thomas created the company, and Ken is a very close advisor of mine. He's been my kind of one of the academic idols that I've had for a very long time. And I see him like he's at Stanford now. He moved from MIT to Stanford, but every time I go to the West Coast, I'll kind of hang out with them. And they're very different characters. Thomas Massey he's a conservative senator. He he was kind of not anti, but he kind of went up against Donald Trump recently, and that was kind of why they had some basically falling out, and that led to him being basically losing his seat. But he's had notoriously pictures over the years of like a Christmas photo of him like having like a bunch of guns with his family and things like this. And so Ken is like a blue-haired, like has ponytails, does this type of thing. But they both created this company. I just find this super fascinating that personality, like technology, isn't bounded by these like personalities or archetypes or whatever sometimes. But so they created the technology, and then they actually, because they were in search of an application, they built a 3D modeling software that eventually became called Freeform. And this is like 3D modeling and sculpting, and you can feel what you're interacting with and doing that type of stuff. So the notion of the creative soul of this type of technology comes from a very beginning, like early on. And I like that it walks, like you have these companies like NVIDIA that create, on one hand, games, on the other hand, robots, on the other hand, like these 3D worlds like Omniverse and stuff like this. And I like that they walk that line between creativity and kind of like, deep tech, enterprise technology, like advanced stuff. And there's a soul to it. And before starting the company, I was part of like some 3D, or like, let's call them like digital art collectives and things like that. So I think the UX and always appealing to an audience, making that like wow moment where the people will try your technology and their eyes will light up because it's like, oh my God, what the heck? I just felt a thing from a digital world. And it is the most rewarding experience. And so there's a humanity to it. And I think it being a human machine interface, so that HMI, even that sounds like there's a human, like that intersection between human and machine is incredibly, incredibly important. And a lot of the best things that we use and interact with as just like interfaces, the best ones are ones that are easy, are intuitive. We can interpret them. They're predictable. We understand them. And that communication piece can go so many different ways beyond just sight and sound. And now we're dealing with touch with our devices. So it ends up being a very important part. And so the UX is I'm obsessed with the user experience design.
Beautifully explained.